It's been 25 years since The Talented Mr. Ripley came out, and Academy Award-winning writer Steve Zaillian has taken the character and turned it into an 8-episode limited series. But how does this stack up to the 1999 version? In this video, we'll be looking at some of the biggest differences between Ripley and The Talented Mr. Ripley. And I'm not just talking about choice and thongs. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below which version you thought was better. Both versions follow Tom Ripley, a sort of down-and-out con man meandering through life without direction. In Ripley, he's portrayed by Andrew Scott, and the 99 version, Matt Damon. You'll immediately notice the age difference between these two. Damon's Ripley is markedly younger, in his 20s, and hasn't really established himself in New York. He has a passion for music and dreams of one day playing in a big concert hall. The same can't be said for Scott's Ripley. His character is more mature and reserved and has already established himself as a fraudster always looking for his next scheme to pay the bills. Both Ripleys have a pretty shitty life, no doubt to juxtapose the lavish lifestyle they'll encounter in Italy. They live in dilapidated apartments, undertake demeaning jobs, and struggle to get by. This becomes a motivating factor for what's to come. While there are the obvious differences of runtime and shooting style, black and white versus color, both versions employ the same plot device that spurs the story forward. Ripley meets a Mr. Greenleaf who believes his son Dickie is wasting away his life in the south of Italy, so he hires Ripley, believing him to be an old friend of Dickie's, to bring him back to America. In the 99 version, Mrs. Greenleaf is bound to a wheelchair with an undisclosed illness, while in Zaillian's there's just a subtle hint that something is wrong with her as she loses her train of thought.
Emily, maybe it's time for a rest?
But the real big differences become apparent when Ripley makes it to Italy. It becomes quickly evident that Tom loves deception, as when he meets Cate Blanchett's character Meredith Logue and introduces himself as Dickie and not as Tom. This is the first indication that he wants to become Dickie, and foreshadows him actually taking over his identity. The character of Meredith isn't even in Zaillian's version, and for good reason. She becomes a sort of love interest for Ripley, which just wouldn't work the way Zaillian constructed his character. Ripley's sexuality in his version is ambiguous, bordering asexual, while, as we'll see with Damon's portrayal, is the complete opposite. Ripley takes place in the real Italian city of Atrani, while the fictitious coastal town of Mongebello is the backdrop for Talented. It's here our Ripleys introduce themselves to Dickie Greenleaf, portrayed by Johnny Flynn and Jude Law. Fun fact, Jude Law was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this role. Our Ripley's first interaction with Dickie couldn't be more different. While both take place at the beach, Scott's interaction is awkward and stilted, while Damon pulls off funny and charming. Either way, the interaction is a success as Ripley is invited for lunch. Alongside Dickie is his girlfriend, Marge Sherwood, played by Dakota Fanning and Gwyneth Paltrow. In the 99 version, Marge takes an immediate liking to Tom, while Fanning's Marge can't help but think something is up with him. This makes it even more interesting at the end of both these stories that Paltrow's Marge ends up hating Tom, and Fanning's Marge trusting him and even becoming his friend. Now, Dickie is markedly different in both versions as well. Law's Dickie is a party boy who cheats on Marge, gets another woman pregnant, and lives this hedonistic life. Flynn's Dickie is reserved and faithful. He has a dream of becoming a successful painter, something not found in 99. In both versions, Ripley ends up disclosing to Dickie that he'd been hired by his father to bring him back. This actually ends up building trust between the two. For much of the first 3 episodes or first hour of the movie, we see the relationship between Dickie and Tom strengthen. While Tom and Dickie go to a jazz club here, in Ripley they go see an Italian singer. Both versions even have this plot point of buying a fridge with an ice machine, while in the 99 version, Ripley loves the idea, and in Zaillian's he hates it.
I think I'd rather hang myself than buy a refrigerator.
The relationship between Tom and Dickie starts to deteriorate when Tom gets a little too obsessive. In the 99 version, this obsession takes on a sexual tone, with Tom even playing chess with a nude Dickie in the bathtub. That just sounded wrong. Tom even gets jealous watching Marge and Dickie make love on the boat.
Tommy! How's it peeping?
Zaillian's version finds Tom's obsession a bit more ambiguous, with Tom himself stating he's not gay, just that he has this special bond.
It's not that. We're not that. No, there's a bond between us.
And when Dickie catches Tom putting on his clothes, he has to make it clear
I'm not queer.
This all culminates in the infamous boat scene where Dickie cuts off his friendship with Tom. In the '99 version, Tom professes his love to him here, while in Ripley, this doesn't happen. There actually isn't really a heated argument at all. Yet in both versions, Tom ends up beating Dickie to death with an oar. However, there are some big differences which have major implications for how we perceive Ripley going forward. In both versions, Dickie survives that initial hit to the head. However, in the Zaillian version, Dickie reaches out his hand and asks for help, but Tom decides to pummel him to death anyway. This is a cold-blooded killer with no remorse. In the '99 version, Tom is shocked after his initial hit to Dickie. He can't even believe what he's just done, even offering to take him to the hospital. But in the fray, Dickie attacks and Tom kills him in self-defense. He'll later go on to lay with his dead body in grief. Contrast this to Zaillian's Ripley, who has him immediately pilfering him for goods. It's much more cold. There's even this big disposing of the body and falling overboard segment, which isn't found in the '99. It's interesting to note that the death of Dickie occurs 57 minutes into the movie and roughly 2 hours into the limited series. It's from here on in that Tom assumes the identity of Dickie Greenleaf, performing a delicate dance of sometimes having to pretend to be Tom and other times Dickie. There's this great scene in the '99 version where Meredith invites Tom to the opera, believing him to be Dickie. But guess who also shows up there? Marge, knowing him as Tom. Needless to say, Tom gets out of there as fast as he can. In search of Dickie is one of his best friends, Freddie Miles, played by Elliot Sumner and Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's never trusted Tom and sees him as an outsider and a leech. In the '99 version, Freddie, like Dickie, is this party boy set on hooking up with chicks, whereas Sumner plays him reserved. In his search, Freddie finds Tom staying at Dickie's apartment, unbeknownst to him that Tom has taken over Dickie's identity. Freddie soon realizes what Tom has done when the landlady, who has a much larger role in Zaillian's version, tells him that Tom is Dickie. But when Freddie confronts him, Tom bashes him in the head, in one version with an ashtray and the other a bust. Tom's main adversary is Inspector Ravini, who in the '99 version has a considerably smaller role, is called Inspector Roverini, and is even taken off the case and replaced with a Colonel Verrecchia. With all this heat on him, Tom writes a suicide note as Dickie, which sets up perfectly the next sequence of events. Marge finds Dickie's ring in Tom's apartment, but in the Zaillian version, she thinks Dickie must have given this to Tom knowing he was going to commit suicide. In the '99 version, Marge sees past this ruse and puts the pieces together that Tom killed Dickie, although she has no proof. The apparent suicide of Dickie prompts Mr. Greenleaf to venture to Venice with his private detective. In the '99 version, we get a shocking revelation about Dickie that we don't get in Zaillian's. At boarding school, Dickie almost killed a fellow student. He had a very violent past. Thus, it's possible Dickie killed Freddie and ran. In exchange for not passing on this information to the Italian police and keeping the Greenleaf name intact, Mr. Greenleaf will give part of Dickie's trust to Tom. So not only does it seem Tom will get away with 2 murders, he'll even get money out of it. In the Zaillian version, Tom gives an account of why Dickie would kill himself. He makes up this elaborate story that Dickie professed his love to him in San Remo, but when Tom said he was pathetic for doing so, Dickie sheltered up in Rome. Combine this with a talentless career, a disapproving father, and a girlfriend he can't love, it just became too much for him and he killed himself. This explanation seems good enough for Mr. Greenleaf. The end of the Zaillian version sees him getting away with murder and millions of dollars in Dickie's assets. He was able to sell Dickie's sailboat for several million lira and even took the Picasso from his home. He goes off to start a new life with a British passport from a con man named Reeves Minot, who is not in the '99 version. There's even this huge revelation for Inspector Ravini, who gets a copy of Marge's book that has a picture of the real Dickie in it. This is the first time he realizes that Tom was never Dickie all along. Talk about a dick pic. The '99 version has a much darker ending. Tom ventures off with Marge's gay best friend Peter, who is never seen in the other version. While on the ferry, he runs into Meredith, who, remember, believes him to be Dickie. In order to shoo Meredith away and keep her from meeting Peter, he kisses her, a kiss Peter ends up seeing. In the last scene, Tom opens up about the reality of who he is.
I always thought it would be better to be a fake somebody
and a real nobody.
He asks Peter to name some of the nice things about Thomas Ripley, getting at the core of who Tom is as a person. And as he lists these things, Tom prepares to choke Peter to death. This is a murder based on fear, a fear that someone will truly get to know him and the darkness within his soul. So those are some of the major differences between Ripley and the talented Mr. Ripley. Which version do you think reigns supreme? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...
Tommy! It's a Cate thing.